Virtual wholesaling is a strategy that can be applied in a very similar way, both in Canada and the US. Although fundamentally the approach is the same, there are nuances and differences with how an investor can effectively apply the strategy on both sides of the border. This week, I sat down with Tadi to talk about this and much more. You're listening to the Black Wealth Effect podcast, where we're all about inspiring the next generation of Black Canadian real estate investors to succeed financially. If you're tuned in, that means you're hungry to take action and build wealth outside of your 9 to 5. We'll be sitting down with Black real estate investors, entrepreneurs, and allies to discuss a diverse set of topics to help you along your investing journey. Let's get started.
You're tuned in to another episode of the Black Wealth Effect podcast. I'm your host, Mario. Please like, subscribe, and leave a comment for the episode so we can keep bringing you this great content. Our very special guest this week is Tadi. Tadi, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, well, we're excited for having you. Definitely, it's gonna be I think it's gonna be a great conversation. Selfishly, virtual wholesaling is one of my favorite investing strategies. And I do know you're a guru in that space. And so definitely excited to learn from your experiences, you to kind of share some insights with our listeners. Also, we've had a lot of investors who have done wholesaling in Canada or in Ontario specifically. And
Okay.
they've brought a perspective and insight to the show. And more actually, investors, especially just within the circle, my circle, have actually started wholesaling in the US. And
Okay.
so it'll be definitely an invaluable conversation for you to share your wisdom and just tips for folks that are getting started.
No, yeah, definitely. Actually, a couple of my mentees live in Canada, so I do think that is a pretty common thing.
Yeah. And I say, we'll naturally get into it in a moment, but I think fundamentally, virtual wholesaling, the strategy is very similar, on both sides of the border. But I do know there are nuances and different, obviously, resources that an investor can use on both sides, right?
Definitely. And I didn't know you were from Canada, so that's awesome. That's cool. I have family in Vancouver, and I love it. I love visiting. It's so beautiful.
Yes. And so, but before we delve into the questions specific on your wholesaling experience, we do like to start off our episodes with just getting to know our guests on the personal side. And
Yeah.
so a few questions, or actually one question for you just to start is, what book are you currently reading?
Oh, that's a really good question. So I'm currently reading Buy Back Your Time by Dan Martell, and it's a really good book so far. And then I just finished Build to Sell the day before yesterday, and that was really good too.
Nice. And that second one, what's that book about?
Build to Sell is about building a business up front in order to sell it, or even if you already have an existing business, what are the things that people that are buying businesses look for, how to get the most out of it. And it's given in a story format. So it follows the story of a guy who, owns a business and he's in the weeds of his business all the time. And I loved it because you can't really sell a wholesaling business per se, but I've learned a lot of skills that are applicable in other businesses with wholesaling and content creation and, marketing in general. So it was a really good book for me to think about, okay, in my future endeavors, how to really set it up front to where 2, 3 years of running the successful business, it would be in a position to sell it. And it's a really good book, and I love books that have the moral wrapped up in a story, like The Richest Man in Babylon is my favorite book, and I just love it when it's a story because I love storybooks. It just makes it so much easier for me to get through it than just nonfiction, actionable advice. So both of those books are really good, and Buy Back Your Time is just about literally buying back your time as a business owner. How much is your time worth and how much time are you spending doing tasks that could be outsourced for a dollar amount? And sometimes I'm the type of person that's I'm going to do everything myself. And this year has been a big lesson that more will get done if I don't do it myself. So that book really is helping me strategize and reinforce how to allow help, hire help, get the right help and just streamline that whole process. Cause being a business owner is a lot. It can be a
Mhm.
lot.
Yeah, agreed. I'll definitely have to add both of those books to my list. Thanks for sharing. And so, like on the show, like we always talk about like understanding like your why around like real estate investing. So just thinking through like the motivating factors, like being able to clearly articulate that and establish that for yourself, whether that's like a different lifestyle or just building generational wealth for your family. Like for you, like throughout your investing journey, or even at the onset of your journey, like what was that kind of moment in time where you kind of thought to yourself, like, oh, like real estate investing, like there's value in this. Like you really wanted to like seriously pursue it.
Well, so my story is pretty unique because I got laid off of my job during COVID and I kind of went, head first full throttle into wholesaling. So it wasn't like a one of those things where I spent some time researching it and learning and kind of like slowly put it into my life. No, it was like 100% of my time was put into doing deals. I got laid off of my waitressing job. COVID, everybody got laid off. The restaurants all closed. And basically, I was just put in a position to where unemployment was going to be $300 a week. And I knew I couldn't survive off that. And I heard about wholesaling from somebody that actually sat in my restaurant. He was a flipper and he started off wholesaling. So I followed him on Instagram some months before. So I just DM'd him and I was like, "Hey, how did you get started?" He told me wholesaling. I went on YouTube. He gave me some books to read. And I think it was like 3 or 4 days later, I was already getting my first list here in Vegas. And I called it for like 8 hours a day, seriously, for 2 weeks. And it was horrible. And I was going to give up and I saw something about virtual wholesaling on YouTube. So I switched to Ohio and I spent the same 8 hours a day just calling people in Ohio. And I got a deal on my third day. I ended up doing 6 deals my first month. So for me, it wasn't about real estate investing. It was about making income on wholesale deals. And I went, head first. I was waist deep in just phone calls all day long. So I learned really fast. I had a lot of motion fast. So there was not really a time period of like letting it sink in and really realizing it was just, I need to make money. This seems like a way I can make money. Oh, shoot, I'm making money doing it now. Let me keep doing this thing. And over time is when, as I was just doing deals wholesaling, I realized, okay, maybe I should keep some of these or renovate them a little and sell them, make a little more than a wholesale deal. So it was in the process of wholesaling that I even started exploring other exit strategies or even learning about them, to be honest. I didn't even know what I was doing when I started. It was all like learn as you go.
It's funny how that happens sometimes, right? And like you touched on, and like there's that importance around like building your network. Like I'm very big on like don't recreate the wheel. Like the likelihood of someone likelihood that somebody else is doing what you're planning or thinking of doing high, and so like lean on the experts, right?
Yes, 100%.
And so like now that you're in it, you've been doing it for a few years now, I believe. Like, can you talk about like when you think about 5 years down the line or 10 years down the line, like what are some of your key kind of like either like business or life goals related to your business?
Yeah, so I think that the key thing that I've learned from virtual wholesaling is the marketing and sales aspect. And I've really got to understand like the fact that you can make 10, 20, $30,000 on one transaction is amazing. And then I've been able to meet people who are doing different types of transactions where 6 figures is the minimum transaction. So being exposed to these types of things has really opened up my eyes to the possibilities of, ways to make money out there in the world. So it's very exciting because just 3 years ago, $10,000 was like, you could have told me if you told me I need $10,000, you might as well have said you need $10,000,000. Like, it was so much money to me. And now to be in rooms where people have sold businesses for $2 billion, and it's just amazing. It's like, I don't know why, I believe in God. So I'll say, I don't know why God put this in my path for me to learn this and to be doing this. But in the next 5 to 10 years, the trajectory I can see is with being exposed to all of these different industries. Of course, I'll always be virtually wholesaling real estate, but real estate is really cyclical as well. And there is a lot of recession proof businesses, and there's a lot of opportunities out there that the same skills that I have from marketing and sales of h- real estate virtually can apply to these other avenues. So I'm really excited because I feel like I've gotten very strong in like marketing and social media presence and understanding what a target audience is and how to give them what they want on one hand. And that translates to every business. So in the next 5 to 10 years, I definitely see myself, 100xing what I'm doing now. I don't see why I won't be a multimillionaire in the next 12 months or so. And I've already done some huge things here in this lane. So I'm just super excited. I've written a couple books. I've just been really tuning into the things I love and enjoy doing as well as I'm good at. So I'm just kind of going with the flow and just, executing every day as far as brand and marketing, sales, still doing deals. But for me, real estate is more of active income. I'm not really big on like, oh, I just want to own, 100 houses or whatever. That's not really my goal. I would rather make millions and millions of dollars and then buy houses because taxes are a problem than, because I've done everything. I've flipped houses, I've had rentals, I've wholesaled, and wholesaling is by far my favorite. I'd rather buy properties just to not have to pay as much taxes versus as a strategy to create income, if you know what I mean. Because if I cash flow $500 on a house, I need 10 houses to make $5,000. And that's a lot of, different types of stress, whereas I could make $5,000 doing a lot of other things that are a lot simpler. So
Yeah.
I don't see home ownership as a way to make this income. Passive income is like a buzzword, but I don't really believe in passive income. I'm still super young. I have plenty of active income time left in me. So I'm excited to build businesses and create more income for myself and create opportunities for my family and friends to work with me and, stop having to work crappy jobs or drive Lyft or drive Uber. Like I want to make an impact on the people I love's lives by giving them career paths to where they can also make multiple six figures. So that's kind of where I'm at right now. I'm just walking my path and thinking big as big as I can.
Yeah, and it's great that you're not only obviously continuing to focus on the day to day and absolutely crushing it, what you're doing today, but having that long term view as well, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's great. And so, as I said, like I'd love to delve into kind of the intricacies and the similarities and differences from a wholesaling standpoint on both sides of the border. And so, like we touched on the importance of obviously having a net, right? And so, in the US, like when you think about like your power team, as we call it on the show, or like the professionals you interact with on a day to day basis, whether that's, for example, like your lawyer, as you're like writing up contracts and closing on deals, or some of the key members of your power team that you interact with on a day to day basis for your business.
Yeah, definitely. So, as a one woman show, as I was for like the first 2 years or year and a half ish, my main power team was the boots on the ground. So, that's going to be the people that are there in the actual physical market where I'm wholesaling. So, I was living in Vegas. My first virtual market was Cleveland, Ohio. So, there was a couple guys there, Randall and Santino, and they would go take pictures for me, interact with the sellers. Sometimes elderly sellers wouldn't want to use DocuSign and online signature software, so they would get contracts signed for me. So boots on the ground is probably the most important because once I get a yes, I want to sell from a seller and they agree, then the boots on the ground is going to be the next point of contact. So from there, the title company. So I worked with a couple different title companies and they're very important because they're the ones who make sure the transaction happens smoothly. And honestly, those two are the only necessary power players. Everybody else is kinda just icing on the cake. So if you do have realtors that can give you a little insight, or if you do know some contractors that can give you a little insight, that's all good, but it's not necessary. What's necessary is motivated sellers, a way to find buyers, which with Facebook and, buyers lists and stuff, it's very easy, and your boots on the ground in a title company. That's literally all that you need to virtually wholesale.
Nice. And so you touched on title companies. I'm not too familiar with that. And so does the title company consist of lawyers that would support along that process, or how does that work?
No, so there's some title companies there's some lawyer states and there's escrow states. So a lawyer is not necessary everywhere in the US for a real estate transaction. Some states are attorney states, so a lawyer is required, like North Carolina, for example. You would need an attorney in North Carolina. But in Ohio, you don't. You can just use a title company.
Okay. That makes sense.
So they're
Okay.
interchangeable pretty much. So in some states, it might be your attorney, but in Ohio and in St. Louis, my first two markets, it was just a title company.
Yeah. So like in Ontario, like a lawyer would be involved in every transaction. So that's interesting. There's that difference there. Okay. And so like what were some of your like early challenges, like just like scaling your business and interacting with those folks as a part of your power team?
Some of my earliest challenges were kind of around, what do I say to the seller so that I'm not lying? Because I'm very averse to like, I'm not trying to do anything sneaky or, that seems fraudulent. So how do I put this conversation to where I'm not lying, but at the same time, I'm not saying that I'm looking for buyers for your house because that is off putting in itself. Like if I
Yeah.
tell you I'm just looking for buyers, well, why wouldn't I just get an agent? Or, there's just so many objections that can come up from that. So it was important to me to feel confident when I said, my partners are going to come look at the house and have the buyers that I talk to feel like partners on the deal, know that I could trust them to not kind of go behind my back. So it was a lot of long conversations I was having with people to ensure that, they passed the gut check where I didn't feel like they were going to be sneaky and go behind my back and would present themselves to the seller in the right way if they were going to meet the seller. And I think those were more of my fears. But over time, of course, you win some deals, you lose some deals. But over time, with the volume that I've done, I figured out some, simple processes to where even if it's a new buyer, I can just put some standards in place for them to interact the right way with the seller, and deals to go smoothly, and also to explain to the seller there's multiple different exit strategies, and we don't really determine that until after we've seen the property and we're gonna close on it either way. But one of those ways is we might just sell it to one of our friends or one of our competitors if it's too much for us to do, which is what the assignment is. So then if the question on the assignment comes up later on, we've already kinda talked about it. Well, remember when I told you that we have multiple exit strategies? This deal didn't really work for us. It's not a lie because I do buy some of the deals. They have to be, like, so good that it would be dumb to sell it, but so it's not a lie. So I just had to get comfortable with how to do this ethically because I think there's a lot of gray area, and I think that's what makes a lot of people look at it as a bad industry or predatory, but it's not that it's predatory because a seller isn't gonna sit there and call 75 people to sell their house. They want ease. We're offering a service of ease for the seller, but at the same time, you have to tread lightly because you're not a licensed agent. You can't market properties. You do have boundaries that you need to stay within. So that was my biggest challenge. How do I do this ethically? How do I stay within my boundaries? How do I not get in trouble? How do I not step on toes? And I think it just took being strategic and taking my time and really building a solid relationship with the seller where they felt like they could trust me and taking the stress away from them and getting ahead of the potential issues with the buyer. So always staying a step ahead of the transaction and making sure the seller is always on the same page really eliminates a lot of those problems.
Yeah, I agree with you. Like it's definitely was like a balancing act, but like ethics and having that integrity and transparency to an extent is definitely important when managing those relationships, right?
Yes, 100%.
Yeah. Okay. And so, like and I know you share a ton of insights on this just in social media and various places, but like for somebody getting started with wholesaling, like what would you say are kind of the like your top main tips for them and like insights that you could share with getting started?
Yeah, 100%. I think it's really important that to understand that if you live in a major metro market, like me, living in Las Vegas, New York, Miami, wherever, if you live in one of those big cities, Dallas Metro, Houston Metro, Atlanta, I don't know if I said Atlanta already, but you're going to have a ton of competition, and your competition is people who are spending hundreds of thousands of dollars a month doing the same thing that you may only have $500 to do or $1,000 to do. And that's why virtual wholesaling is so important because you're able to leverage your time zone, you're able to leverage your budget and really make the most out of the marketing that you're doing. I don't like to compete in those big shark markets because it just doesn't make sense. I'm never going to win. So I'd rather take the path of least resistance and pick A smaller market with a lot of real estate investor activity. So then your next question is going to be, well, Toddy, then what's a good market? A good market is a secondary or tertiary market to those major markets. So if you live in Houston, maybe that's a Beaumont or Killeen. If you live in Dallas, maybe that's a Plano, so you have to look, and every state has them. I would say Las Vegas is tough because Nevada is such a small place. I mean, it's a big state, but there's not really a lot of cities. It's like Nevada, it's Las Vegas, Reno, Carson City. There's not a lot of cities. So Nevada's a little tougher. California is tough altogether. But if you're going to look at Midwestern states and Sunbelt states, there's more than enough cities to choose from. North Carolina has a ton of great markets. It's just, where's there a lot of cash buyers? Where's there a lot of rental properties? Where do rental properties meet the 1% rule or better? So if the house is 100,000, rent is $1,000. If the house is 200,000, rent is $2,000. That's the 1% rule. If you're finding markets that meet that rule, that have 20, 30,000 cash buyers, that's a good place to start. And next, learn that market. Watch YouTube videos, moving to Raleigh, North Carolina, investing in Raleigh, North Carolina. Those videos will help you so much. Pull a hot zip codes list. And if you go to my YouTube channel, I have so much in-depth tips on really how to do this. But all of that is like a really great place to start. And once you pick a market that you feel confident in, the time between making that decision on that market and taking action needs to be very short. And you need to be taking action because this is one of those things where you can get in your head and start feeling like you need to know everything to succeed, but you don't. I'm telling you, I knew absolutely nothing. I was a waitress, and then 2 weeks later, I was calling sellers saying, "Do you want to sell your house?" So when I tell you that you don't need a lot of education or experience, you just need to be willing to fail forward and be willing to get a lot of no's and be willing to fail. And I promise you, if you just do those 3 very simple things that you can do in the next 24 hours, there are $10,000 checks and $20,000 checks and even $75,000 checks, right around the corner. So that's my best advice.
Yeah, I love those tips. And like, I know there are like specific resources I would say like investors in the US have access to. Can you talk about that? Like in just terms of lead generation, I believe there's a term, was it skip tracing?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
So when I first started, very simple. I spent less than $500. So I got my list from reprolist.com. There's like a 7-day free trial. So I download a list there. I skip trace it on skipsavior.com. So on skipsavior.com, you can get 10,000 skip traces for only 3 cents each. So you're basically spending $300 plus the 100 for the list. You're at $400, right? And then a dialer system. So I really like Phone Burner. It turns your, computer and your cell phone into like a call center. Or Ready Mode is another good one that my team uses. If you're going to have multiple people calling, that's a really good one. So those are the resources, the 3, that's all you need. The list, the skip tracing, and the dialer system. And then from there, you can literally get a free seller script. Like if you look up free wholesaling script on Google, there's going to be tons of them. So just get a free script. And the main thing you need to focus on is just trying to kind of build a relationship, build a friendship, build a camaraderie with the seller so they will be open with you and tell you what's going on and what their motivation is. That's most important. And don't waste too much time on people whose only motivation is the money. There has to be another motivation besides the money, or else they'll just hold on to it until it's worth more later. So that's something that you kind of start learning as you go, though. I definitely spent a lot of time having 30, 45-minute conversations with people that weren't going to sell for years anyway. So I think that's the gift and the curse of being like good on the phone, like just being someone that people want to talk to and comfortable with. You'll end up having long conversations. You'll end up being people's therapist. But when you get the right person, it'll end up giving you a big check. So those are the systems and the softwares that you need. And that's literally it. That's literally it. And yourself and time and commitment.
Yeah, and I love that you have access to like to actually download lists of motivated sellers.
Yeah.
In Ontario, we actually don't have access to that. Like there are a lot of kind of like privacy rules, regulations that restrict that. And so from a lead generation perspective, we really have to get creative with how we generate leads, like whether that's like flyer campaigns or like door knocking or like just like going down to city hall or like the city offices and like literally going through their archives and trying to find um, lists of motivated sellers. And
Oh, wow.
so yeah, it's a bit different as well, like out here.
That's interesting. That's very interesting. Yeah. So I guess county records and then like, or just like pulling everybody in a zip code if possible.
Yeah. Like a shot in the dark, basically. Those types.
Yeah. Yeah. Just throwing spaghetti against the wall. That's really your only option, but it would work. It would take a lot more time, but it would work.
Yeah. Yeah. And also like just building, like as you touched on, right? Like building relationships
That's
with
probably how you would have to do it, like referral basis where people will say, "Oh yeah, Mario, he might buy your house. He's an investor." That's probably the way you would have to do it because that's tough. Or you could just pick a virtual market in the United States and same, super simple. It's super simple out here, and there's like 40 good states to choose from. So
Mhm. Do you, I think you touched on it off the top, but like, do you have like a favorite state or like a market that you focus on today?
well, we focus on different markets. I wouldn't say I have one favorite, but I think Midwest and Sun Belt are like the best. Georgia, Florida, Texas, North Carolina, Ohio, and then Missouri, like St. Louis, Kansas City. Like those are some places that are still really good. Rent rates are increasing, but they're not crazy major metros. As long as you're not doing like Miami, Houston, Dallas, in Georgia and Florida. Central Florida is really good. And you can literally focus on like Cape Coral, for example. You could focus on one town. You could even go further and focus on one strategy and just do land. So every niche is really good. Every market is really good. As long as it's not a major metro and there's enough cash buyers, you're going to be good. It's just getting deep into that market and actually learning it because you need to sound knowledgeable when you're talking to sellers and know what areas are, you know, what areas are expanding? What areas are gentrifying? What areas are terrible? Those are things you need to know, and you'll learn anyway as you talk to sellers, but you can start off even by saying, like, "I'm new to this area and I wanna start buying houses," and talk to people in Facebook groups and agents and buyers and let them tell you more about, the investment activity in different areas, but those YouTube videos will help a lot because at least you'll know what's good and what's the hood, and you'll know how to present that to sellers in a way that makes you sound knowledgeable about the market. That's really what's most important. And it's not what market is the best. It's how dedicated are you to learning that market and actually sounding knowledgeable that's going to give you the advantage of other people from an advantage against other people, I guess I'd say.
That's great advice. And so we know obviously this year, a ton going on, like in terms of like interest rate hikes and home prices declining on both sides of the border. But how have you like had to pivot your business this year, given what's going on in the marketplace? And then like, what advice would you give what's a newbie investor in pivoting in today's market with everything that's going on?
I would say it's really important right now to niche down and focus on one specific thing. So if you're gonna do owner occupied, focus on senior owners who need to transition into assisted living, like that type of niche. If you're gonna do I don't like owner occupied right now because why would somebody sell a house at their 3.5% interest rate and go move into an 8.5? So owner occupied doesn't make sense, but landlords are buying like crazy right now because it's a buyer's market. So you just need to focus on what's actually working. Vacant houses, tenant occupied houses, there's a recession, people need money, so they're gonna be willing to sell if they only own one home besides their primary. They might get rid of that so they can have a little cushion of cash. So these are the things you need to think about. Why would somebody wanna sell right now? And then go get that list. Who would wanna buy right now? Talk to them and figure out what they even want. And that's how you need to be strategizing to pull lists. In the beginning, you can just literally just pull a vacant list because that's going to give you vacant houses. If someone has an empty house, they're going to be more willing to sell that, obviously. And it's going to give you a good feel of the market. And then pick hot zip codes where rental property investors actually want to buy so that you're not getting deals under contract that nobody wants. So I think that's very important too. Learn the areas. Don't go get deals under contract where houses only sell for 10,000 and you get it under contract for 6. Who's really going to want it? Even though you might say, "Oh, I can make 4,000." Not really because you're already at such a low purchase price you might not even be able to sell it for $1,000. Those neighborhoods like that, they have them in Cleveland, they have them in St. Louis, they have them in Louisville, Kentucky, and they're so hard to sell deals. You could get a house for free and someone won't buy it. So don't get stuck in that because that'll make you feel like wholesaling doesn't work. So get your vacant list in the hottest zip code where you know if I find a deal, somebody's going to buy it, and then just work from there. Work through all the hot zip codes, do different owner types, but owner occupied for right now is tough unless you're going to focus on senior owners because nobody else is really going to want to move right now.
Yeah. Unless they have to, right?
Unless they have to, like their military, or unless they are one of those high income earners who interest rate doesn't really matter. They just want to move, and get a nicer house or whatever. So new construction is down a little bit because of that, because of interest rates and everything like that. So, land is a unique niche, but you have to find your builder before you find the deal with land right now. So, but if you find your buyer first, you'll always be safe. Like if you have a few buyers you've talked to and then you go pull properties that seem like they might want them, that's a safer bet for sure.
Yeah. No,
We've done creative. Like when you say, how have we pivoted? We've been doing a lot more creative because people are in these bad loans they can't afford. So, like, even this month alone, we've done 4 sub 2 deals that we've assigned to investors. So, that's a strategy, but it's an advanced strategy. It's not simple, it's not easy. And I definitely wouldn't suggest that for a beginner.
yeah. And like you touched on obviously buying it right to ensure that there's value in it. Like a buyer would actually want the deal that you get under contract. And so, like, what are some tools or resources that like one could use to actually comp right when it comes to getting deals under contract in the US?
Yeah. So, that software that I shared with you, reprolist.com, not only can you get lists from there, but you can comp deals, you can see lien information, you can see mortgage transaction history, you can see all of the other properties that seller owns. So it's a super thorough, informative website that I think everybody should have a membership to for sure.
Interesting. I didn't know that. Thanks for sharing. And so, at the time of recording this episode, we're a couple months away from the start of 2024. What are some of your business goals as we head into the new year?
So we are focusing a lot on creative. I am really interested in getting some commercial real estate to do some different things in, like event space, content creation space, my real estate office. So I'm on the hunt for something in a different city and just doubling down. Like we've really been growing our team. We have financial goals that we want to exceed. So really just doubling down. But to be honest with you, Mario, I'm the type of person that like when something works and what we're doing is working, I just wanna do more of it and I wanna do it better, so we're seeking out better mentors and we're investing in better data and we're really working on investing more into ourselves and on the personal brand side too. Like, I've invested a lot of time and money into my Tadi virtual personal brand, and I just wanna keep doing those things. I'm starting a podcast soon. I'm helping other people create content, so I started helping other people. I'm leveraging my VAs that help me with my content. I'm helping other people get consistent in their content creation, growing their personal brands, gaining, authority and influence in their industry and in their niche, whether it's real estate or not. And those are the things I'm really excited about, just getting deeper into what I'm already doing, what I love, and meeting new people, expanding my network, hopefully speaking on some more stages this year coming up, going to more events, maybe hosting an event. So yeah, that's 2024. I know every year, what did Tony Robbins say? Happiness isn't like this destination or this goal, it's progress. So every year is so fun and exciting because I feel progress. And I'm telling you, like, I still have times where I have dreams where I'm still like a waitress from 3 years ago. You know what I mean? So like I pinch myself often like, can't believe this is really my life. Like, I can't believe I just got off a call with Jerry Norton or like whatever. Like, it's just crazy still to me. So I'm excited to just go deeper into what I'm already doing and help other people too. Cause what's the fun if you're not bringing people with you along the way?
Amazing. Wise words to live by. Thank you so much for joining us, Tadi. It's been a great conversation. To our listeners, thanks for tuning in to another episode of the Black Wealth Effect podcast.
Thank you so much for having me. This was great.
What was the one thing you heard today that inspires you to take action? Now plan to take that action in the next 24 hours. If you're looking for more support, ideas, or just want to connect with others like you taking action, join us in the Black Wealth Effect Facebook group. The link is in the show notes. Thank you for listening, and we'll catch you next time on the Black Wealth Effect podcast.